Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NTI PodTalk. My name is Dianne Kaler, and I'm the Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. This PodTalk is our opportunity to have fun conversations with interesting people who have interesting things to say about nutrition, food, and health. I talk to NTI instructors, students and grads, to health industry professionals, to farmers, and anyone else who has an interest in nutritional wellness. While many of our listeners come from within the NTI community as students and grads, we also have prospective students who tune in. And to those listeners in particular, I hope you find that the people we talk to inspire you to finally make the jump to pursue your passion and come to school here at NTI. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the NTI PodTalk. My name is Dianne Kaler. I'm the Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute, and I'm here today with a graduate of our program, Carla Abate. And Carla's going to tell us a little bit about herself and how she came to NTI, and we're going to have an enjoyable conversation here. So thank you so much for being here, Carla.
Thank you so much, Dianne, for having me. This is an opportunity. So I guess my draw to nutrition, just maybe to start there, but especially like the holistic side of things, I would say I had to have started with being raised on a farm. So I was raised on a farm in upstate New York, and we had our own gardens, our own animals. We had chickens and eggs, and my father was really proud of his fruit trees. So, I definitely was exposed to what it looked like and felt like to eat a whole foods diet from an early age. But I also just was kind of surrounded by the right community of people. Was very open to people who were very open to alternative diets, who knew what things like celiac disease were at that time.
Yeah.
And I also was exposed to yoga early as well. So just kind of like some alternative lifestyle practices that I was early. And then I went on to study my undergrad at Naropa in Boulder, which is where I took some elective classes like Introduction to Tibetan Medicine and Introduction to Chinese Medicine and Ayurvedic Medicine. So that was kind of another place of exposure.
Yeah. So you did Naropa before you came to NTI?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Good.
So my background was in contemplative psychology there. And then I went on to study I did my master's in school counseling, and I really ultimately ended up kind of in the early childhood education field for a while. And I ran and directed the summer program at the Denver Waldorf School for a number of years, and
great. Really
fell in love with that community and that philosophy. And that's where my children still go.
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, I have to say that you are so lucky to have grown up on a farm. So many people don't understand where food comes from. And, this tragedy that the small family farm is disappearing, and more people don't know where food comes from a hands-on perspective. So you are lucky, and I think that's amazing. Do your parents still have the farm?
Yeah. So my mom still farms. I say, actually, she has farmers that come in and lease the property, and there's still animals, and the barn and all of that is still in existence, and it's operating. But she's very hands off. And, really what led me to NTI, actually, my father passed away from cancer. And it was about 6 months between my father and my sister. They both passed from cancer. And that ultimately it was very tragic. And, that was the fuel to go back and figure out like what happened here. And obviously there's lots of things that are not within our control, but there are some things that are, and I wanted to know like everything I could know about what that was.
Yeah. So, you have that background of growing up on the farm and kind of understanding, you know, what a whole foods diet is, even though you didn't really realize that was anything different, right? Probably. But when you really came to this idea that I want to study nutrition, you know, have a comprehensive education in nutrition, and the time that you actually started looking for a school and found NTI, how long was that time period? Was that years? Was that months? Or was it that 6-month period that you're mentioning?
You know, that's a great question. I just feel like I've kind of always been on the personal whole foods path for myself, but actually it was like that 6 months or so, that time frame was what kind of galvanized me into action to say, I do not want this fate for my family or myself. And it was just like, I was feeling like a time for change. I also was pregnant at the time. And so it was a bit of a traumatic, not a traumatic pregnancy, but it was a stressful pregnancy for me. But yeah, that was, it was the loss of both of those family members that made me decide that I want to study this. And NTI, like in my search, I was really impressed because, you know, it just had such a rigorous science and research base to it. And I was just really impressed by that. That's what stood out the most, as well as the fact that it was in Colorado and I was here. And
that's, you know, that's definitely a benefit. I have heard, you know, not hordes and hordes of people, but I've heard a lot of people who, you know, go on a search to find a nutrition school, who are local here to the Denver area. They go on a search to find a nutrition school, and somehow they miss finding us. And, you know, only afterwards, after they've gone to a different school, they're like, I had no idea until I was there. So I'm glad you were not in that minority of people who that happens to, that you were able to find us and it was local, and you were able to participate at least in one in-person class. Did you kind of do a mix and match?
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm more of an in-person learner, but because of COVID and a lot of different things, obviously I've just adjusted to, you know, online experience, and there's certainly some benefits, which I love. But I really loved the in-person experience with all of the instructors at NTI. And one of my favorite moments was getting to participate in a cadaver, which I don't know if that happens at NTI, but it was so mind-blowing to me because, you know, you have that experience of seeing, you know, images and, you know, charts and things like that. When you're learning about some of the different systems, right? The ligaments and the fascia, but to be a part of the, like to see an actual body and see different layers unveiled, it was just really incredible.
Yes. Well, thank you for bringing that up. We don't do that anymore, but that doesn't mean that we never will. It just hasn't, you know, fit into our in-person class opportunities lately. So we haven't done it for several years, but doing cadaver studies is definitely really interesting. Yeah, I've done that a couple of times. It is very interesting. Humbling. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So can you remind me, when did you graduate from NTI?
Oh my God, it's been a few years now. That's a great question.
So, sorry to put you on the spot.
Here, but because, you know, it's been interesting for me, the process too. Like, you know, I took this a bit of a slower path through the process, being a mom and all of those things. But at the same time, I ended up having no, it was like, it's been 2 years now. It's been 2 years I graduated, I feel like, officially, because then I went back and I became board certified through the National Association for Nutrition Professionals, which I think was so wonderful that I had that opportunity through NTI being, you know, providing the opportunity to be able to do that. But there was a portion of time during all of this where I ended up really having to dive into my own health journey too, effectively. So yeah, so it's a little bit wishy-washy.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty,
Right.
it was about, 2 years ago. So.
Okay. Nice. Okay. So, two things I want to ask you. I want to come back to the board certification and taking that exam. And this kind of, this next question kind of dovetails with that. And that is, were there any kind of, skills or large knowledge sets that, are things that still are in your mind, and as you're working with clients or as you're thinking about something, you like, oh, I got this from NTI and that was life-changing for me. Or it's just something that sticks. And it doesn't have to be a particular topic, but like, just broad knowledge bases that you got from NTI, and then how that fits with the NNP, the board exam is, did your education at NTI prepare you well for that board exam?
Yeah, no, those are both great questions. I think one of the things that I just love, and one of the things that is brilliant about NTI, the program for me, was just this constant exposure to topics, and let's say leaky gut, or the topic of liver detoxification, like being exposed to these topics over and over, because it's not like, oh, well, we learned about the circulatory system and now we're done. And we're going to learn about bones now. But this was, I think the thing that sets it apart so much is that, you're exposed constantly, because you see the value and the reality that they're inseparable. All of these systems are inseparable. So I would say, just like really getting that awareness that these systems communicate with each other. And so you will be exposed to these topics time and time again.
Yeah. Well, and that speaks to sort of the holistic approach, right? Holistic, when we talk about holistic nutrition principles, that is, very much about sort of, complementary principles and, whole foods and all those kinds of things. But it's also about, how does the gut influence the brain? How does detoxification influence, hormone balance? So that's very much ingrained in our curriculum. So, that you recognize that, without anybody telling you that was the plan. That's awesome. And, we do try to have a spiral approach to our curriculum, where you learn something and then you build upon it, and then you build upon it, and then you build upon it. And that again brings it back to that holistic approach. So, going back to the board exam, do you feel like you got a good, solid foundation in the knowledge to be able to prepare for and then successfully pass the board exam?
Yes. It was, that was a pretty, I don't know. I don't like tests.
Right.
It was stressful, I will admit. But as far as, just having the knowledge base that I had from NTI, and obviously some studying, and I'm trying to remember the approach that I took, but there is like a study guide that kind of, helps to prepare you a little bit. Yeah, I didn't have, I took it the first time and passed it. And, yeah, it was, there were certainly things that I didn't know, that I thought, oh, like, or is this something, maybe a different way of thinking about things? But overall, no, I mean, the majority of the material I was prepared for.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
All right. So, you've talked about how, a lot of things happened during school, after school, all that kind of stuff. But you now have your own practice, Rebel Roots Nutrition. Can you talk a little bit about what you do in your practice, what your focus is, what your specialty is, the type of client that you, what is your target client, and what kind of people come to you for your services?
Yeah, so I would say I have a little bit of a mix of clientele. I also practice at Sattva Health and Wellness in Lakewood, Colorado, which is an in-person practice with a wellness center amongst other practitioners in the alternative wellness, community. But I tend to see people around, mostly women, but around gut health and hormone balance, that kind of thing. But I've really been gearing my practice and building my clientele in the direction of the perinatal stages. So looking at supporting women and their partners, but women who are ready to conceive, who are already pregnant, or potentially postpartum as well. So I don't know if I mentioned, I do have a background as postpartum doula as well. And I've kind of woven that into the experience as well, and what I can offer my clients. That this time for me, the time of parenting was, I had all the interventions. I thought I was going to have this like natural, really smooth birth experience. And in both cases, I had C-section and antibiotics, and it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. And so there was so much support on the one hand, with, friends of mine who had been through it before. And even my second birth after the first one looked very different. I had a postpartum Ayurvedic doula. I learned, the importance of eating warm, nourishing foods that way. And really resting and co-sleeping and things like that. So all of this personal experience really kind of fueled in supporting other moms in this way. So, I work with them, like I said, to support egg health and sperm health. We also work together. Sometimes we might need to look at what the gut health looks like if we're not able to conceive, or is there a hormone imbalance, that kind of thing. And then pregnancy, we have all kinds of issues like gestational diabetes. So looking at how to support blood sugar regulation, also avoiding preeclampsia and working with blood pressure related issues. And then postpartum, I love supporting moms with just supporting breastfeeding issues. Like for me, my experience postpartum was also pretty intense. I experienced some postpartum depression. And, I definitely had this mindset of, you have to get your pre-pregnancy body back, and all of these pressures that I put on myself. And I think that doing, just not really nourishing and taking care of myself, I was depleted in a lot of things. So that's one of the focuses I like to work around as well is, how do we slow down, take care of ourselves so that we can have a, like kind of looking into the future a little bit more of your own health. Like, how can I take care of myself now so that I don't end up with an autoimmune condition, or I don't end up with a really awful perimenopause. So.
Yeah, definitely. And so this is your focus, your area of specialty, both in your own private practice as well as at the wellness clinic you work at, correct? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, good. So I am interested in hearing about how it went for you in finding this position at a wellness clinic, because we oftentimes tell, our graduates oftentimes, and students before they graduate, they're kind of like, well, what are the job opportunities? And we say, working in a wellness clinic, that's a great sort of path to shoot for, a goal to have, if you don't want to be in private practice. So how did you, like, what was your process to get involved in a wellness clinic? And were they open to having a nutrition therapist, or did you have to really advocate for why a nutrition therapist is beneficial in that setting?
Sure. So, at this wellness center at SATVA, we all actually, all the practitioners essentially practice individually.
Gotcha.
And so really, I just kind of put myself out there. I had driven by it, over and over again. And I just was curious. So I searched it, and then I got in touch with the owner. And there was, some space available for rent. She seemed really excited. She's Dr. Yu. She's the acupuncturist there, and she owns the building. And she was just very open-minded. She really wants to create a collaborative workspace, yoga, and many different, body workers, Feldenkrais, craniosacral. There's holistic estheticians there. So it's really beautiful community. And we do work together. We meet like once a month, and we trying to collaborate on how to move each other's businesses forward. So it's growing in a very beautiful collaborative way. I can't say it was just sort of, I just put myself out there, and she was open.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. So do you have, any advice for those who, are either considering, a career change or adding to their existing repertoire? And I really see that your education in nutrition, added to an existing platform of services that you already had training in offering. It's not like you went from, accountant to being a nutrition therapist, right? It was very complementary to what you had already been doing. But, there are many people who are interested in nutrition for their own personal sort of purposes. They're like, I know that what I eat matters, and I know that when I eat this, I feel this. But they may not recognize that they can actually go to school, get a credential that shows that they have knowledge and expertise in this area, and actually turn it into a career. So do you have any thoughts or words of advice about sort of that type of person who may be considering this, but not quite sure if it's really what they want to do?
Yeah. I would say just go for it, because there's so much that you're going to learn on a personal level. And, for me, when I started, I didn't have a particular issue from illness or anything like that. Personally, I was just like, I want to do this preventatively. And that's just enough in and of itself. But down the road, I have found myself struggling with certain things, and I don't know where to start with just how much this program has really prepared and helped me to manage my own health, my family's. And then, when it comes to working with other people, it's just so rewarding. I mean, there's nothing like getting that feedback that, your client fixed their gut and now their skin is glowing, I mean, so much of that all the time. And so it's a really rewarding path. I just think that my words too would be, as far as if you're going to, create a business around it, it just takes some time, but stick with it, and don't be afraid to fail also at getting yourself going. It takes a little bit of time. And the reality is, when you're in it for the right reasons, to support other people, it can't really be a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I always say to people, and I asked you the question, did you have to advocate for yourself, is that sometimes we do have to advocate for ourselves that so that people really understand that that knowing about nutrition and knowing how to make optimal food choices for yourself is so critically important and so empowering. And a lot of times people think, oh, I don't need, nutrition. What do I need that for? Because as long as I look at the front of the package and it says it's healthy and it says it's fat-free and it says it's, good for you or whatever, what all the marketing, taglines are. And they think that that is knowing about nutrition. Sometimes we, as professionally trained, holistic, nutrition therapists, we just have to start talking about a subject to let people really understand, number one, the depth of our knowledge and the depth of our understanding about this subject, but also the importance of it, so that they start seeing that actually, this is a huge thing, and it does have wide-reaching implications, both for short-term health and wellness, long-term health and wellness. My own nuclear family, plus all the people that I interact with, whether it's, future clients or just people that I interact with on a social basis or extended family, et cetera. And so it may not be so obvious to those who aren't inundated in this world, this field of nutrition. It may not be so obvious why nutrition knowledge is important. And so it's just important for us to advocate for ourselves by just starting to talk about a subject, because that's how we really show how incredibly knowledgeable we are.
Yeah, I fully agree. And we have to advocate for ourselves when we go, to see the doctor.
Absolutely.
You have to advocate for our family because, doctors aren't trained in nutrition. I mean, they a couple courses, and it's so, and I don't blame them. That's not their expertise. And so we really have someone who can advocate for us in that way. And, just a little short story, but I had, it was a couple years ago now, but I had leaking spinal fluid and I had these massive headaches for almost 6 weeks. And finally, my doctor kept trying different things and saying, oh, it's probably this and it's probably that. And with the training that I had, I was very in tune with my body. And I absolutely had this, thought that it was probably leaking spinal fluid. So I asked him and he said, no, I don't think that's what it is. We're just, if let's try this medication. And finally, a couple went by, I took myself in and I got, a scan and they said, you have leaking spinal fluid. So
oh my gosh,
one of those things where, I had the tools and I felt so like, I know this is what it is and I'm not being listened to. And so, yeah, we have to advocate for ourselves and for each other. And so we need some knowledge around this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so that brings us to kind of another question. And maybe you've already answered it, but, what does wellness or, being healthy, what does that mean to you and in your life, and how's that expressed in your life?
Yeah. I'll tell you what it used to look like.
All right, good.
It used to look like exercising 6 to 7 days a week as hard as possible, going to CrossFit, and, eating some kind of strict diet. And I just, that has just burned me out. And really, I'm like, that is not what healthy is. I think wellness is, I really truly think of food as like 80% medicine and 20% play and enjoyment and, social activity. There has to be some balance. So finding balance around how we take care of ourselves and not this, all out, go pace, because it's not sustainable and you're going to get burnout and there are going to be consequences. Your health will suffer. ultimately. So finding balance, finding times to take pause, and to role model that for my kids is so important to me.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's a time and a place for therapeutic interventions and having strict diets. There's a time and a place for just getting on medication, pharmaceutical medication, if that's what is going to, support you. And there's no other answer. So it's balance.
Yeah. 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 I like that. And I love how you point out that, modeling wellness and this sort of this healthier way of living to your children. I think that's really important. Because, obviously you are their first teacher. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been a really fun conversation. Really interesting to hear about your work and your life. So where can people find out more about you, and what are all your handles and all your contact information?
So my website is www.rebelrootsnutrition.com. And you can also find me at www.lovesattva.com as well. That's my in-person practice in Lakewood. And I have an Instagram page, Rebel Roots Nutrition.
Okay. And I'm sorry, can you spell sattva?
Oh, yeah.
Probably, yeah, just.
It's Love Sattva, LOVESATTVA.com.
Great. Okay, good. Glad I had you spell it, because I would have spelled it with only one T, and it's two T's. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this has been wonderful. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi there, and thanks for listening today. If what you heard today inspires you to want to pursue an education in holistic nutrition here at Nutrition Therapy Institute, please check us out on our website, ntischool.com, and reach out to us at admissions@ntischool.com. Our in-depth, comprehensive education is sure to provide you with the knowledge and skills you need to create the work of your dreams. Do something that feeds your passion, aligns with your values, and fuels your drive for a vital and meaningful life. It will be rewarding for yourself, your family, and anyone else with whom you interact. And with that, see you on the next episode.